Hi guys, welcome to Office Blokes React. I'm Office Bloke Dave.
I'm Office Bloke Mike.
I'm Office Bloke Daz.
Collectively, we are the Office Blokes, aren't we?
Yes.
Yep.
It's true. We had a fun night, afternoon opening a care package yesterday, didn't we?
It's great, wasn't it?
Yep.
Or even morning, if you
Yeah.
want to go that far.
All sorts in it.
Yeah, we got sent a care package from Houston, Texas. Did a bit of an unboxing, and it was
great.
It was pretty fun, actually.
It's got
Some
down
good
pretty
stuff
well,
in there.
hasn't it, as well, I think,
Yeah.
with everyone. So
Yeah, people seem to have enjoyed it.
Yeah.
The vast majority of the people that watched it aren't subscribed to us, if you look at the people that commented on it, sorry.
really,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, but it's got me thinking, though, if
In that
anyone
case-
out there does want to send care packages from whatever country they're from or whatever the state they're from in America, just go for it. We love unboxing stuff.
I'm going to
like that.
send
Yeah.
you two one.
You're going to send one to you too? Is
No,
it a pair
just
in a
for you
box
two.
for Bono?
Because, yeah. That's what I'm going to send my boner. Boner in a box for Bono. No, I'm going to send you a care package from me.
Right?
What I'm
Really?
going to do is I'm going to choose, because you're both very indecisive people, I'm going to choose for you.
Sometimes, but not all the time.
I can't remember why. but-
Exactly. I'm going to choose for you an NFL team. And that's what I'm going to send you as a gift. And you're going to unbox it, and that's the team you're going to support for this upcoming season.
Right.
Well, you can't change anyway. That's your team forever then.
That's just locked down, is it?
Yeah.
I was thinking Philadelphia Eagles, and that's because of Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Right.
That's-
Okay.
That was my thoughts, but
Okay.
My thoughts are Green Bay Packers, because I used to sort of like, I didn't follow them, but they were one of the teams that stood out for me like years ago when they first started playing NFL over
Did you
here.
have a favourite player?
No,
Do you know any players from the Green Bay Packers?
one or two, but they've retired now.
Go on.
I can't remember what they're called.
there's
Brett Favre.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that.
That's wide receiver. Remember
Yeah.
him? No, actually, he was a quarterback, mate.
I can't remember. I don't know.
I'm putting you under the bus here.
is
alright?
is
Not
there
so
a-
I can't remember. It's years ago.
Is there a Lamar Green? Seems plausible. But I don't know. Anyway, if you want to send us a care package, or even if you don't, but you just want to watch the video that's the Houston, Texas one, check it out on the channel or click the link below, and we've got an address and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Not a PO box, because they just get lost in the ether when you send it to a PO box.
It's
Don't
ridiculous,
use the
isn't
PO
it?
box.
Yeah,
We
it's
Did
bizarre.
tried that, but
It's a
Yeah, it
full
don't work.
address.
Yeah.
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 Right then, so the NFL's logistics problem. I mean, we touched on it with the, I know it's not the NFL, it's college football,
Yeah.
but with the Crimson Tides,
Yeah, the size of the...
when they could have 130 players.
that's
and then,
just the
everyone
players.
needs duplicates of their equipment, and then you've got all the staff. I think they said 2 lorries just full of equipment, didn't
Yeah.
they? 2 like 18-wheelers.
Absolutely.
yeah,
huge,
on
yeah.
the scheme of things, as far as logistics go, it's not a lot. Because I used to do things like the Porsche Super Cup and the Formula One.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
yeah.
Don't know when you're talking
It's
like
more the
250
people
containers,
and
you
all
know,
that
stuff.
Yeah.
two charter aircrafts, but you're doing that sort of like overlapping. One goes there, the next one goes to the next one, and then that one goes to the one after,
Yeah.
and so on.
Yeah.
With this, it's sort of like it's fast turnaround,
Yeah.
super fast turnaround.
Plus the distances between stadiums as well. It's not like,
Yeah.
Manchester to Liverpool for a
Nope.
game, is it? You
Nope.
might be going thousands of
What's
miles.
that?
Could
Yeah,
be
could
because
do,
the
yeah.
Giants and could play the Jets in a.
But
I
the
know they're
va-
two different divisions, by the way.
the
but
the vast majority of their league, I'd presume, is going to be travelling,
Yeah,
though, isn't
yeah,
it?
it is.
To other
Well, I think
states and
I
stuff.
think we've been through it before, that if they've got like a local, like we'd call a derby, it could be like 200-300 miles away, couldn't it?
yeah,
At
'cause
the
I
nearest
think,
team.
Say for instance,
Oh,
New York
yeah.
Giants. I think probably the closest one is the Philly Eagles.
Right, okay.
For what they would play as
Yeah.
far as like the same division.
Yeah. Go Birds.
Distances.
Just copying what I hear other people say. Let's do it.
Big fan.
NFL's huge fan.
You'd be the sort of person to be a Philly guy anyway.
That's what I mooted it in a previous video, and loads of people in the comment section said, "Yeah, that makes sense."
Yeah.
If Dave was from Philly, so I was like, "I'll go for that."
And unless Portland have a football team, then
Oh
you fit
no,
right in.
no, I'll pass. Right, the NFL's logistics problem. Let's do it.
Possible by Skillshare. Learn from over 25,000 classes for free for 2 months at skl.sh/Wendover6. No sports league in the world makes more money than the American National Football League. The NFL earns more yearly revenue than the English Premier League, the Champions League, Formula One, the Japanese Nippon Professional Baseball League, and the Continental Hockey League combined. It is by far the largest sports league in the world by revenue. Making up the NFL are 32 football teams, each themselves essentially acting as their own distinct businesses. These teams are spread out all across the contiguous United States, some only 30 miles or 45 kilometers apart from each other, some nearly 3,000 miles or 4,500 kilometers apart. Now, American football teams are some of the largest in sports, both physically and in numbers. They have a roster of 56 players, the majority of which play in any given game. These players weigh on average about 250 pounds or 110 kilograms. This team size leads to some particular travel needs. Players each require a first-class seat, or, at the very least, the seat next to them free in economy, meaning those 56 players take up far more than 56 seats. On top of that, a team typically brings more than 100 support staff and an immense amount of cargo to each away game. With the exception of the largest, most valuable ones, most other professional sports teams in the US will just fly on chartered narrowbody aircraft like A320s, 737s, or 757s, but most NFL teams, given their size, require something larger. NFL teams tend to charter their aircraft from commercial airlines, American, Delta, United, or Hawaiian Airlines, and they'll typically fly something a bit larger than other teams like a 767 or sometimes even a 777, but the nature of this charter job makes finding a plane to take them particularly difficult. You see, let's take the example of the New York Jets' last game of the 2018 season versus the New England Patriots on December 30th. For this game, they left the day before on a United Airlines 767-400 at 3:37 p.m., landing 30 minutes later at 4:07 p.m. in Providence, Rhode Island. The plane then sat on the ground at Providence Airport for the next 26 hours until the game was over. The following day, the plane took off.
For a minute there, I drifted off and thought the players were sat on it for 26 hours.
I did as well.
That's my instant.
I'll send you right over the edge.
Yeah.
How far has it flown?
Well, it was 30 minutes.
So you're going from there to where did he say he went from?
Newark,
New Jersey to where? Providence, Rhode Island.
Well, if you think we can fly to Amsterdam in about 40 minutes, can't we, from here?
Yeah.
So it's probably... I suppose you can't really judge it by that, because some people fly higher than others, and I don't know, but...
Well, it's sat there ready to take him back, isn't it?
Yeah.
At 6:30 p.m. bound for New York. The aircraft's previous flight had been to Buenos Aires, and its next flight was to London, and yet for these 26 hours, United only made money from the half-hour charter flight to and from Providence.
Wow.
It's easy to understand why this wouldn't really be worth it to the airline, but at least the jets are located next to a United Airlines hub at Newark Airport. Many teams, like the New Orleans Saints for example, are not located in a city with any airline hub. That makes finding an airline to take their charter contract even more difficult. That's because, for example, when the team had to travel to Charlotte last season, the 767 that took them had to fly in empty from Houston, the nearest United hub, then fly to Charlotte, sit on the ground for 33 hours, fly back to New Orleans, then once again fly empty, this time all the way to New York. All told, for those 2 hours and 51 minutes of flight time United was paid for, they used this airplane for almost 44 hours.
Wow.
Hang on a minute. I've chartered flights many times, right, for cargo.
Yeah.
Right. Over thousands. Right?
Yeah.
And you don't just pay for the flight time.
No, but I think that's what he's getting at, isn't it? They're paying for the 44 hours of
You've got to.
of
You
the
pay
plane.
That's what you say. The airline only charged for 2 hours 51 minutes. All the charter brokers and charter companies I've used charge you for the use of the aircraft.
Yeah.
From when you use it, and even sometimes repositioning. So they say we can bring it back to New Orleans, but once it's finished in New Orleans, we have to reposition it in Houston, which is another.
And you've got to pay for that as well.
You've got to pay for that as well. All those are factors into the cost.
I'd imagine the NFL is a huge contract, though, for whatever flight company.
Yeah.
So there might be concessions made and stuff.
Yeah.
They might do it at a loss just because it's...
But all these airlines are massive airlines with, aircraft.
Oh, yeah.
availability.
Yeah, they've got plenty of stock there, haven't they? It's not like they've just got like half a dozen planes or anything, so...
But you don't just pay for flight time, I know that for sure.
It's scary when you realise that planes don't really stop.
Yeah, I know.
Like for me, who doesn't particularly like flying, it's like that plane's probably been going for 30 years straight, apart from when it's being serviced.
They're well maintained, though.
I know they are, I know.
Yeah.
Being located away from an airline hub where planes are based means charter flights will almost always require a plane flying in empty. It is for this reason that airlines are raising rates or just flat out stopping flying NFL teams as they find normal commercial flying a more lucrative use of their aircraft. American Airlines in recent years, for example, dropped all the many teams they previously flew except for the Carolina Panthers, the Dallas Cowboys, and the Philadelphia Eagles, 3 teams located at their hub airports. More teams have moved their contract to dedicated charter companies such as Atlas Air or Miami Air International, while the New England Patriots even bought their own set of planes to solve this issue. Some other teams still have contracts with commercial airlines, but have switched to flying multiple smaller planes as these can be in less demand. The Indianapolis Colts, for example, now typically travel in 2 Delta 757s leaving within a half hour of each other. Other American sports, such as hockey, baseball, and basketball, don't have nearly as much of a problem because they play far more games a season, which makes their contract a more attractive one to airlines, and they also typically use smaller aircraft, of which there are more available. The NFL briefly considered investing in its own fleet of aircraft or at least negotiating a deal with an airline in bulk, like the NBA does with Delta, but for now, NFL teams are seeing their travel costs skyrocket as the laws of supply and demand take hold. After losing their contract with American Airlines, for example, the Jacksonville Jaguars saw their travel costs double to $4 million a year as they chartered an Atlas Air 747, and remember, those $4 million pay for the travel costs to a mere 8 away games.
Wow.
But the NFL's most daunting logistics problem is not this. Their most daunting logistics problem relates to the NFL's other big problem: expansion. You see, part of the reason the NFL is the most valuable sports league in the world is because of how saturated the football market is in the US. 57% of Americans identify as NFL fans. That's an amazing level of market saturation for what is, at its core, a business, but that also presents a problem because, with such a high proportion of the population already fans, it's quite difficult for the NFL to expand their audience, at least within the US. In the past decade or so, the league has turned its attention internationally. The NFL now plays regular season games in Mexico City and London. These cities don't have home.
Is that an actual regular season game that's in London?
There's a couple now, isn't there? They used to do just one, didn't they?
Yeah.
And it was played at Wembley.
Yeah.
And now it's hosted at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium now, and it's a regular season game.
They got
I think it's two.
Right.
I think it's 4 teams that play now, like 2 games.
and I think they built part of the stadium specifically for it, didn't they?
It
With
was
all the
definitely-
changing
it was
rooms
built-
and stuff underneath.
Changing rooms. They've got a pitch that actually comes out. So the
Wow.
football
Yeah.
pitch, the soccer pitch goes away,
Yeah.
and the NFL pitch comes out.
Yeah.
So I think they've got 2 pitches on top of each other.
I thought it'd be like a post-season tour,
No.
like
No,
when
proper matches.
Premier League teams go
No,
to
there used to
America.
be. I
and
think that's
stuff.
how it started out as an American. It was like an American league, American football exhibition.
Yeah,
But then it's turned into
Proper
regular
league, wow.
league games now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's no wonder it's hard to get
and
tickets.
they fill a stadium.
Yeah.
Oh, they do every time, don't
I
they?
mean, Tottenham doesn't hold as much as Wembley does, but I don't think they do them at Wembley anymore.
Oh, do they
I
not?
think Spurs got the contract through.
Right, okay.
It was the guy who owns one of the teams there. He wanted to buy Spurs, didn't he? I can't remember which team he owned.
Yeah, I
I can't remember which team it was
No.
now. Yeah.
I think all these teams are going to be looking at Chelsea's travel spend at the moment, going, we can get our costs down a little bit.
Well, it was the guy. Sorry, the guy looked to buy Wembley. Didn't
Ah,
he?
right,
And he
okay.
had an NFL franchise.
Yeah.
And he wanted to move the NFL franchise to London, and that was going to Wembley was going to be the home stadium if he bought it.
Yeah. Ah, right. Okay, yeah.
Sort
yeah.
of thing. And I think the NFL
That's
squashed
right.
it, and I think Wembley said no, they didn't want to sell it because I think
Yeah.
they offered like, I don't know, 800 million for the stadium or something
Wow.
crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know, but the
Wow.
FA didn't sell it.
Wow.
Teams, but rather, 2 teams from the US will come out and play. For the most part, these international games are about promoting the sport in these 2 countries which already have significant fan bases watching the sport on TV. There's never been more than 1 game a season in Mexico City, but in London, in the 2019 season, they're playing 4 regular season games. With the 16 regular season games per team per year, any other city that has a resident NFL team typically only has 8 home games, meaning London's quantity is really not that far off. What's more, the Jacksonville Jaguars are designated as a sort of home team for London and therefore play at least
So
it.
predictable.
Missed it.
So predictable.
of their games there each year in an attempt to give the city and country a clear team to root for. The league has even said that it plans to eventually have a full 8 games per season in London, the same as any home city in the US.
Wow.
The reason there are now so many NFL games in London is because the sport of American football has gained significant inroads in the UK audience. The NFL estimates that it has 13 million fans in the UK, 4 million of which watch regularly, and 47,000 of which buy games to every single NFL game in the UK.
I think 13 million's a bit of a stretch. I've got no data to say that, but that's a significant proportion of the population, and I don't know anyone other than you two that have really. In fact, I know one other guy that watches it sometimes.
Right, I know quite a few people that watch it, but it's one of them. I don't think he's getting at that. If you go back, just go back to that stat.
NFL estimates that it has 13 million fans in
there. That's 13 million fans. Now, I'm a fan of the NFL.
Yeah.
Right? But when he goes to the next stat, he says 4.6 watch regular. Right?
Yeah.
So that's probably more of a thing when I consider myself someone who watches NFL, not very regular. But I'll pick up the get. I'll certainly follow, certain things. And then when you say watch regular, people, I talk about this when you go in the pub and people say, I'm a regular in this pub, and I say, often you come in and go, come in every Christmas. People who say, I'm a regular, I watch NFL regular, I've watched the last 16 Super Bowls. Is that regular? Are you watching the NFL, or are you watching are you watching the New York Giants against the Philadelphia Eagles on a Sunday evening at 10 o'clock at night or whatever in the UK?
And my point is unraveling because Ash is a massive NFL fan as well, and I completely forgot.
So I think 13 million is probably a fair sort of like comment on that, because it's because you've got them fans, like you say, what classifies a fan? Someone who knows about the NFL, who likes it. That's a fan.
Yeah,
people who watch regular, it's only it's a quarter.
I just don't see a lot of jerseys, and like ice hockey, for example. I see people wearing ice hockey shirts quite a lot.
Yeah.
I know we talked about the jerseys the other day, but merch.
I think round here, to be fair, we've got a nice hockey team, haven't we?
True.
So you're probably more likely to get a few fans around
the
here.
players next to the pub are drinking sometimes.
I think if you go to Wembley or Spurs ground, right? Spurs got a great name for their ground now. Or is it just called Spurs Stadium? It used to be called White Hart Lane, didn't it?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's not called White Hart Lane anymore.
No, it's not. Is it just the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium at the moment?
Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
Yeah,
if you go to Spurs Stadium and when the NFL's on, everyone will have an NFL shirt. It won't necessarily be the ones that are playing. Which is kind of a bizarre thing for me to see. It's kind of like when you go, you'll see like it's even when you go and watch England play football, you see club shirts.
Yeah, of course you do.
So, but if you go and watch the NFL and it's say Seattle Seahawks against the Miami Dolphins, you'll see like New York Giants. You'll see the Raven shirts. You see all different types of shirts.
It makes sense over here, don't it? Because there will be so many people have different teams, don't they? Because they're not from the US.
Correct.
So it's going to be like a eclectic sort of bunch of
13
people,
million is just 1 in 6 though. Of the UK population. That's quite a lot.
Yeah, I think that's
quite big. It is a big amount.
I think that's fair.
Wow.
UK, 4 million of which watch regularly, and 47,000 of which buy games to every single NFL game in the UK. Its dedication to the UK has become so significant that it contributed $12.5 million to the construction of the new Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in North London. This recently opened stadium was built to become the home of the NFL in the UK. It has a permanent synthetic American football pitch under its grass soccer field, purpose-built NFL-sized locker rooms, and a media suite built to the preferences of NFL press. In the coming years, at least 2 NFL games will occur each year at this stadium. Now, the logistics of these international games in London are formidable. When the Seahawks played in London in 2018, they had to ship 1,150 rolls of athletic tape, about 4,000 pounds or 1,800 kilograms of medical supplies, 350 power adapters, 500 shoes, 240 pairs of socks, and tens of thousands of other pounds.
The power adapters. I wonder if they had the plug from the airport that goes from a 2-prong to a 3-prong.
Oh yeah. Gotta be on it.
When they landed, everyone tried to charge their phones and went, fuck, and they had to go to duty free.
Get an adapter.
Hundreds of them.
Poundland down the road.
Equipment to the city weeks ahead of their arrival. Months before, they had to arrange for many of their players who had never left the US to get passports. The team's trainers had to carefully schedule their players' sleep in the week leading up to reduce jet lag. There's even a hotel in Watford with a purpose-built American football practice pitch that teams typically stay in.
Wow.
While these London matches come at great difficulty and force teams to sacrifice a coveted home game, the teams and their owners seem to tolerate them given their infrequency and the promise of the UK market. But the promise of the UK market could push the NFL to stretch beyond 8 international series games a year there. You see, there is some very real, very serious discussion of putting a National Football League team in London. There is little doubt that the city and country could support a team in terms of fan base. The issue, according to the league's commissioner, would be having one solitary team stationed more than 3,000 miles or 5,000 kilometers away from the next.
But then if you go further the other way, it was 4,500 kilometres.
3,000.
No, it was 3,000 miles, wasn't it?
That's probably to the nearest team, isn't it? Then
That's
you've got,
if
you go across the other side of the states,
Yeah,
I mean,
what I'm saying
you're
is
playing the LA Rams,
but
go to London,
what, you go like 8-10 hours or something.
What I'm saying is, though, at the beginning of the video, one side of America to the other was
but not every game's that. Every game they're going to have there is going to be, that's the minimum.
Yeah.
But what you've got is, here's a question for you. If they moved an NFL team to the UK and you had an NFL team, like I like the New York Giants, right? And I've been to a few New York Giants games in Meadowlands, as it was then. So that's my team forever. Can't change that.
Yeah.
If a franchise comes to the UK, would you follow that team?
I suppose you would, really.
I
haven't got a great affiliation with any team, so I'd probably more likely to do it because I'd certainly be more likely to be able to go and watch the match as well.
See, I thought your affiliation would be from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because their owner is the same owner as Manchester United. I know you love their owner.
Oh yeah, I absolutely adore the guy. We really do. I mean,
even if there was a team based in London, it'd still be an American team full of American players, and I still think there'd be an element of it'd feel like
there are some British players in the NFL, right?
Yeah, I'm sure, but I doubt there's many. But the point is, it'd still feel like every other NFL team. To me, it'd be jumbled up in the same hat.
Yeah.
Just because they're playing in the UK wouldn't mean that they're getting my allegiance all of a sudden.
they were trying that with football.
If one came to Manchester, though, you'd probably...
Oh, yeah. All out of it, yeah.
It's only because it's London, isn't it?
Yeah, they were trying it with football, weren't they, over here? They were trying to get the 39th game from the Premier League and to play it somewhere else and saying China, Asia or something like that. But it just never worked, and I don't think it ever will either.
I don't think they'd have it in the UK. I don't think fans would have it because you get too many fans that go to every single game, home, away, women's, kids, whatever it may be. They travel and go to every single game. So to move that overseas, they wouldn't want that.
You'd have to change the name. It'd have to be the IFL.
Or the XFL.
XFL, yeah. No, it'd have to be the IFL, and the International Football League, because it's no longer national.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Be an immense logistics problem considering that, for the weekly games, teams would have to take flights as long as 11 hours, crossing up to 8 time zones.
Yeah, forget that.
On the flip side, this London NFL team would have to travel continuously throughout the US for weeks at a time since, practically, it wouldn't make sense for them to return to London between the weekly games.
Someone that runs the London team would turn around and go, should we just stay over in New York for a couple of weeks? And before you know it, they're not based in London anymore.
Exactly.
The flight was delayed by a day or 3.
This would come at enormous expense, would likely impact their performance, and prove unpopular with their players. In addition, as the UK does not yet have significant American football talent, the majority of this team's players would come from the US and would need to be persuaded, either monetarily or otherwise, to live outside their home country. Those are just some of the cost problems. Beyond that, it is not cheap to fly a whole NFL team over the Atlantic every week. For the International Series games, teams were flown on chartered Virgin Atlantic 747 or A330s arranged by the league, but if London had a fully fledged NFL team, it would likely be treated just like any other team, meaning both them and their American competitors would have to arrange their own flights. The wide-body planes teams would have to charter to cross the Atlantic come at a cost of up to $50,000 per flight hour. That means that transatlantic travel costs, just in terms of the flight, would be anywhere between $650,000 for an East Coast team or up to a full $1 million for West Coast teams. Teams also tend to carry tens of thousands of pounds of cargo to each away game, which would further escalate the cost. While such an expense would be little issue for large, wealthy teams like the Dallas Cowboys or New England Patriots, teams with smaller budgets like the Detroit Lions or Cleveland Browns would certainly have more of an issue with potentially adding an extra $1 million in travel costs. But this level of team isolation is not unprecedented. Further west, in the middle of the Pacific, the University of Hawaii has a Division I college football team, the Hawaiian Rainbow Warriors. The closest team in their conference is 2,600 miles or 4,200 kilometers away in San Diego. To get there, they take a 5-hour flight. That's only an hour or two faster than it would take a London NFL team to get to its closest competitor, the New England Patriots. While the furthest team in the Rainbow Warriors Conference is only a 7 or 8 hour flight away in Colorado Springs, Colorado, they do play a number of non-conference games each year which take them all the way to the US East Coast, an up to 10-hour flight away from Honolulu, which is almost exactly the same as the longest required travel time for an NFL team to London. Not only that, but the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors also have to balance their time with class schedules, which means that they travel to their away games far closer to kickoff than NFL teams typically do to London. The Rainbow Warriors regularly rack up more travel miles than any professional football team. For example, in one particularly grueling month in 2016, the team started its season with an international match in Sydney, Australia, then the next weekend played in Ann Arbor, Michigan, then the weekend after that played in Tucson, Arizona, meaning they flew 25,000 miles or 40,000 kilometers in just 1 month. The Rainbow Warriors also make most of their trips on commercial flights, making their travel even more difficult than that of NFL teams. Now, this does potentially give the team a more significant home field advantage since they're used to playing with jet lag while their opponents, when they fly to Hawaii, would not be, but it also supports the view that, logistically, it would be possible to add an NFL team in London. There are even professional sports leagues that already regularly require travel over similar or greater distances. The Continental Hockey League, for example, has teams spread out all across Asia and Eastern Europe, meaning the teams from Vladivostok, Khabarovsk, and Beijing regularly have to travel more than 4,000 miles or 6,500 kilometers to play the teams from Minsk, Riga, and Helsinki. An even more extreme example would be Super Rugby, which has teams spread out across Japan, Argentina, South Africa, Australia, and New Zealand. With this, when the Tokyo Sunwolves play the Buenos Aires Jaguars, for example, they have to travel more than 11,000 miles or 18,000 kilometers each way to their match. Part of the NFL's problem is just the pure scale of their competitions, with many tens of thousands of pounds of equipment and many hundreds of staff traveling to each game. The problems are surmountable, though, at a cost, but this cost would be partially burdened by every other team in the league. The question is then, given the promise of adding a whole new country to the league, is the cost worth it? Now, if the NFL expands to London, one of the first things the new team will need is a logo. Luckily, there's a class on Skillshare for that.
Segue.
Smooth, mate, smooth.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I think it's an interesting thing to debate, that, isn't it?
It's going to be difficult to get really hooked over in the UK, I think, until you start playing in schools and things like that. It becomes a proper sport everywhere.
It'll never replace rugby in schools.
So, well, they've got rugby to come up against, I suppose, haven't they, as well? That's a good point.
Imagine your average high school having to spend that on equipment for people, for everything that they need, shoulder pads and everything else. It just never happened in this country.
Yeah.
Too tight.
I kind of disagree a little bit because a lot goes into rugby as well.
Yeah.
But I also think there's a lot of history behind rugby, and it's two very different sports, number one. It's just been an additional sport added to the curriculum, I think. You won't take away from rugby. I think what you've got to look at on a commercial side there, I think with rugby, and this is something that happens in football over here as well, if you're bringing a team over here, it's going to take fans away from a different sport. Mm-hmm. And I think rugby's probably one of them where you've got to look at it and think, are you going to take our fans away?
Absolutely, yeah.
Is rugby going to diminish by an American football team coming in? Mm-hmm. Probably, I don't think it would, because rugby fans are a bit weird, right? they're very it's rugby and nothing else.
Yeah.
You don't get many rugby fans that go to rugby, football, cricket, boxing, right? They just go to rugby. And they tell you 1,000,000 times an hour how many times they go to rugby, right? And how they're well behaved, and how footballers are wimps, and how that's what they do.
Yeah,
that's
what
rugby
happens
guys do.
in rugby locker rooms.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely nutcases.
You're right about taking it away from fans away from their sport, though, because that's exactly what happened with rugby. Because rugby league started playing in the summer instead of the winter, didn't it? Because they're clashed with rugby union.
Correct.
Because they thought without that they wouldn't survive, because there was always a bit of a thing there.
I also think that rugby league may lose fans to American football, because that's probably more similar than rugby union. Rugby union wouldn't lose fans
because
to
they play it
football.
as a summer sport, probably, wouldn't
Correct.
they?
Yeah.
Then you've got cricket to contend with.
Well, they wouldn't play it as a summer sport. Rugby league plays as a summer sport, but NFL would be played in the winter if it was a league.
Do you think so?
Well, that's why they play. They play in the National Football League.
Yeah.
You're not making a new league over here. The team's coming in here to play in the league, which runs from September to January.
Yeah, I was talking if they started leagues actually in the future, long term down the line.
Oh, if they started leagues over, it might be a little bit different. I'm
well,
talking about this NFL franchise.
Oh yeah, then it'd be the same. Yeah,
there's non-professional leagues over here, isn't there?
Yeah, you can play American football over here.
I think you could incorporate one team over here. I don't think it'd affect rugby or anything at all.
I think
if it's just one team.
I'm talking about spectator. I'm not talking about playing it. I'm talking about spectators and viewership and fans watching it. And you might go on a Saturday. You might think every Saturday I go to Man City, right?
Yeah.
Saturday every weekend I'm at Man City. If an NFL team comes over, not me, but someone else might go, do you know what? That's more of a family environment for me to go down and watch the Jacksonville Jaguars against the Detroit Lions, right?
Yeah, you get
whoever it may be, and then say, I can take both my kids. We can have a day out. It's fun. Where everything's going on. They have a singer on at half time. It's more family packed. I'm not going to go to the football anymore. I'm going to go to the NFL.
Yeah.
That's where it might come. That's where you might get that fan. You can steal them fans.
Yeah. And if you get the kids into it, that's the future secure.
I get that, but I would also sort of wager that a lot of the fans that do go are Americans that are living over here, you know, because you've got a lot of servicemen and stuff like that work over here.
I don't think 47,000 of them that go and buy tickets for every game are Americans.
Yeah, not all, but there will be a lot, and especially with being in London, you get a lot of people in London. You'll get a lot of tourists buying them as well.
I know quite a lot of people in London who are English who go to the games.
How many people are doing that as a one-off and a novelty? And, you know, 2-3 years in, they're like, oh, I've done that. It was something different.
You're going to get that. You're going to get that in every sport. I know people who do that with football. I know people who do it with rugby. I know people who do it with cricket. I've took my kids to cricket and they've gone, that's the shittiest sport I've ever seen in my life. I'm not going there again.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And I go, but I love it.
Not wrong.
You know, I'll sit there and get a beer at 10 o'clock in the morning and still be there at 6 at night when they put the lights on, drinking beer. Still sat there. I have no idea who's winning, but that's doesn't matter.
Yeah, part of the atmosphere. But like I say, you know, they have got a lot of tourists in London, which would help it as well, wouldn't it? That'd keep the tickets ticking up, because even we get them at our grounds, don't we, these days? But you know,
but what you've got, there's loads. But what you've got as well, Dave, going back to what you were saying there about people who come and try it as a novelty. What about them ones that love it when they go? Because it's a whole different experience going to an NFL game than it is going to a Premier League game or a Champions League game or whatever. You've got to be. You can go to the NFL and just enjoy the whole atmosphere in the day. When I go to the Champions League, I'm stressed as shit. I'm arguing with everyone. I'm drunk. I'm like a proper pain in the arse. Right?
We like it all the time.
but that's the kind of like thing. And for me to take my kids when they were young to the Premier League or to the Champions League, I wouldn't.
No.
It was only when they got older I said, right, now you can come with me. And then they understand. And now they're both adults. They both come and they've turned into me now. You know, that's,
I've seen the video.
It definitely looks more family orientated without a doubt. NFL, it does look something like you could take young kids and they'd have an absolute whale of a time.
So when it's here in London, is it like an experience like it is in the States? Because you're not going to have tailgating in London, for example.
Probably not, but you're still going to have all the pubs where it's all mixed. All the pubs. Now, if I go to Spurs Stadium now, I can't go in a pub within a mile radius of that.
Because you're a City fan.
Correct.
Yeah. But NFL, everyone's going to be drinking together.
Correct, yeah.
But then, like, you touched on halftime show maybe, and maybe you get there earlier and there's more going on.
It's almost like an alternative Super Bowl experience.
Yeah.
So you're going to go there. They're going to give you that Super Bowl experience in a regular game.
That'd be pretty cool.
I think it would be. I agree with you.
And I can see exactly what you said about more family friendly. Yeah. Like I've been to ice hockey a few times, and that is more family friendly, even though there's fighting and all the other stuff that comes in with it, and there's drinking, and everyone sits, opposing fans sit with each other, but the whole thing's jumping up, people are singing, dancing, there's loads of food on the go. It's like, that's a family friendly atmosphere, and I would rather take my kids to ice hockey games than to Premier League games, given the choice.
Do you think your kids are too young for Premier League games because they're not football fans as well?
No, they'd be bored.
So they'd be bored silly.
Yeah, true. Do you think in the American football thing in London, say if they had an American football team, say London whatevers, do you think people over here that have got a team already would actually go and support them? Say
that's what I said. That was a question I was saying before. Yeah. If a franchise come over here, would you change to be the London franchise?
That's what we're not talking about. Also, I'm talking about people that really support them, because me and Dave are obviously not.
Some people will. It might take a while for them to buy into it. Sort of thing. But if someone's a really I mean, I've got a mate who he watches Miami Dolphins like it's his favourite team ever. And I can't remember if he's been to a game in Miami or things like. But Dan Marino was his hero growing up, so he was like a massive Miami Dolphins fan. Talks about wears merchandise for Miami Dolphins. You know him, Fozzie. And he does everything. Everything revolves around American football and Miami Dolphins. But he's also a big Premier League football fan. If a team come over here, let's say it was Pittsburgh, and moved the franchise from Pittsburgh to over here. And it was sort of like become the London Steelers or whatever it may be. You know what I'm saying? Something like that. He wouldn't change.
No, that's what I'm getting at.
You know what the thing is? Branding. If it was the London Soft Lads, everyone up north would be going, "Jog on, mate." But if it was the Old England Patriots or something like that, if it was an England team,
Old England Patriots, you got to go.
You know what? You've got a point there. You have got a point there. Do they call it an England name, or do they call it a London name?
If it was a London name, you've more than halved your audience.
I kind of agree. I'm not sure you've halved your audience, because I think people would also be rooting for the team. No, because what happens now is if I watch Liverpool now on football, I'm rooting for the other team. Right? No matter who they're playing, it's the other team for me. And it'll be the same with the NFL. If they're called the London something, whoever team come to play them, I'd want them to win.
You would, but you probably wouldn't be as diehard a fan as if they were the England something, and then you'd be like,
change it a little bit. Yeah.
I think it's a thing with the NFL
team then, doesn't it?
Because that's what all the other teams are, aren't they? There's Pittsburgh Steelers, you know, New York Giants. You know, they've got the city name, haven't they?
But how many states are bigger than England?
Probably most of them.
There's quite a few.
Quite a lot. Yeah,
so it'd be justifiable. But, although it would be that movie, the 51st state.
I would guess it'd be.
But also, if you do a national team like that, you're going to draw. If you, like you said there, the talent pool you're picking from in the UK is shit. You probably wouldn't be able to get half a team out with people who come from the UK to play in the NFL.
Yeah,
but I think the audience is definitely here with what they've got there, and they know they can turn that 13 million into 26 million quite easily.
I think one of the biggest problems will be what they said is getting the players and staff and everyone else to actually come and live over here. I mean, think the amount of people it takes and their families and stuff. Like you think, I mean, how these guys just got. I know they'll get well paid for it, but it's a big ask for them.
They're only going to be here for really 8 games a season, and then after that, unless they make the playoffs, then they got the playoff games or whatever. But the 8 games a season, and then they move back to the USA.
Yeah, true.
Or country, wherever they're from. But that's where they go back. So they're only really living overseas for 4 months of the year.
Yeah, good point. Good point. It's more doable when it's like that, isn't it?
Maybe five if you take into consideration training, pre-season training, which I think they probably do in the USA anyway.
Yeah, true.
But interesting concept.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah,
the logistics that goes into it is just ridiculous.
It's
the number of planes, and it's you would think the NFL being so rich as it is, they'd have a fleet of planes, fleet of aircraft.
Yeah,
but then it's obviously
and then rent them back to the teams.
Yeah.
That's what they'd have to do, isn't it? Otherwise, they'd be just sat on the tarmac doing nothing. Wouldn't they? They'd have to be carrying other passengers as well, wouldn't they?
If you purchase them planes, you put them on hire in the close season, so they're basketball teams or whoever it may be.
Hockey teams,
discounted rate. And just have the NFL, just have a sports franchise team aircraft fleet, and just charter them that way.
Yeah.
Anyway,
interesting stuff, that, though. Yeah.
I love that. I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. I hope you guys enjoyed it too. Don't forget, like and subscribe. Let us know in the comments if you want to see an NFL team in the UK. Because it'd be interesting to take to what the actual NFL fans want.
And what should they be called?
Yeah. Not London anything. Manchester Maniacs. An X.
Oh god.
After
I just think of that stupid Miami fan every time you say things like that. Brother, you come over here, brother. Millwall, brother.
I think you called yourself something like the London Towers.
London Towers.
Yeah. Something like that, wouldn't you?
That'd be more of a basketball name.
London Palace.
The London Dungeons.
The London Gimps.
Tie you up in let us know in the comments what you think of it, and any suggestions and advice you want to give us for our NFL team we're going to get in the UK. I can't remember who that guy was. Remember the guy who had the big moustache? And he had, I might have been Baltimore Ravens or somewhere. He wanted to bring the franchise over here and buy Wembley.
Right.
Let us know in the comments who you think it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget, like and subscribe, hit the bell, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Cheers. Guys.